Hello, Dr. Ken. Thank you for coming to tell me a little bit more about DBT. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, Joey, especially on a busy Friday morning. It's good to be here.
Awesome, yeah.
I'm a psychologist by training, and I've been practicing for almost 20 years now. I don't know if you know this, but I recently returned to Rochester. So most of my practice has been in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And last summer, I returned to Rochester to be closer to family and joined the practice here, the group practice here at VCP. And in terms of DBT, I would say I have been running DBT groups, probably my first DBT group was over 15 years ago, probably close to 20 years. And I started out with doing primarily DBT groups in the inpatient setting, primarily with adults. And then over time, I worked with adults in the outpatient setting, and over time, it started to transition over to more teens in the community. So here I am at VCP with a lot of enthusiasm, and I'm really eager to share my experiences and what I found DBT to be helpful with both the teen groups, the teen population here, as well as adults that VCP serves. We actually cover 4 main modules, and let me go through. The first module that we cover it's called distress tolerance, and it's let me back up a little bit. Think about each module that I'm mentioning. We're going to be doing that particular module and learning skills for over 8 weeks. So it's not like 1 week we do distress tolerance, another week we do something like interpersonal effectiveness. We're really going to get into the meat of this. So backing up, distress tolerance is one module that we do. Interpersonal effectiveness, another module as well, and that's relationship skills with your friends, parents, community members. Also, we have a module called emotion regulation. Basically, everything under the sun about emotions. I find that emotions sometimes can get a bad rap, right? Even when folks think about, shucks, I'm really struggling, and so I need to see my doctor more often, or I need to see a specialist. But in this particular group, and specifically this module, we really go from that place of emotions having almost like a bad rap to really, if I can say, even honoring them and giving them more respect, but also learning how to use the information from our own emotions where they serve us, support us, and help bolster us, then perhaps get in the way and snag us from living a life that feels full and happy. There is another module as well, and for the teen, this is added on, and they call that particular module Walking the Line, and it's very much related to the other modules: distress tolerance, emotion regulation, interpersonal effectiveness. But in this module, we pay a little bit more attention to identifying what particular behaviors we want to maintain and increase in our life that support our health. And once we're able to identify some of those behaviors, thinking about ways how to make that happen with more ease and more often, as well as identifying some behaviors, on the other side that we may not need anymore. Perhaps even one time was effective, but not so today. And all of this very much overlaps together. But with each module, we give one particular skill or area a little bit more attention. And I do need to say also, this is very important module, although sometimes people don't think of it as a separate module, because mindfulness is something that we talk about, and we weave it through all the different modules because it's just a very integrative part of not only when we learn a skill, how do we actually implement the skill and practice the skill, but also how do we learn to treat ourselves as we are learning new skills, and also letting go of behaviors or past ways of thinking that were once perhaps helpful and even wise, even though today they seem to be problematic for us. Let me start in general about who would be a good referral, because again, I think DBT often gets that reputation that it's only for those who are struggling and having acute symptoms, which is true. That can be very helpful, and it's one of the it's best practices, one of the top rate recommendations when someone's really struggling with, let's say, suicide ideation, or someone who is self-harming frequently, or someone who doesn't feel safe at home, or maybe at school. But we experience DBT as life skills that are actually for everyone. So anyone who's open to wanting to learn skills to improve their self-esteem, their self-worth, self-respect, someone who would like to learn new skills to help cope with intense emotions, and not only better understanding them, but finding healthy and creative ways to channel these emotions. And the emotions could be related to shame or anger or sadness, or someone who's wanting support and learn skills with how to manage some thoughts that can be really scary at times and uncomfortable. For example, thoughts of hurting oneself. And as I said earlier, definitely a group where it's not just necessarily a thought, but things have gotten a bit tough. Emotionally, it may be related to school or home, where that teen or that adult has started to self-harm to somehow try to cope with the situation. That's a more clear example of when a lot of folks are referred. But to be honest, that where I've seen DBT really work is not just the short-term help to get rid of, but to help with those intense moments in our life, but really a way of life and skills over time. Other things to think about in DBT, like any other group where we learn, or we have a group that works together, is just simply thinking about improving one's quality of life. That's going to be different for everybody. So I think that's pretty general, but I hope that, my hope is that those of you who are watching this short video would feel that, maybe you might get something here out of DBT. And it can be because right now you're really struggling, and the emotions that you are experiencing may cause you to either not be able to do day-to-day chores or even day-to-day responsibilities, for example, school or work, or at times the emotions are very intense that you may resort to unhelpful behaviors, but something that helps in the short term. But also those of you who are not experiencing these acute emotions, but want to really learn some overall skills that will help with wellness and skill building and relationships, and really appreciating and having more awareness of just emotions overall.